Hey, Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Hope everyone had a fantastic day. We're getting late here in the evening. Been a busy day. Been on, wedding duty, kid duty, out here visiting families. So couldn't get away to talk about Gary Patterson's press conference till now. But I did want to jump on quickly and just give my top 5 takeaways from a successful press conference, I think. Obviously, that happened yesterday, so we're a little behind the 8 ball here. But I think some good things came out of it. A press conference is a press conference, right? There's only so much you can take from it. You can't win football games at a press conference. Can you lose games at a press conference? Well, if you watched UCLA football and watched Deshaun Foster 2 years ago at Big Ten Media Days, one could say yes. But typically, it doesn't work that way either. But I do think you can take and surmise some from, especially the opening day press conference, at least to just get a vibe of what a coach is like and kind of what mentality they will bring. Again, I think I've said many times about Lincoln Riley, I think what you see in press conferences is very different than who he is as a coach, what you see behind the scenes. I think that's the case with a lot of coaches. I do think there's a lot of coaches that do wear their emotions on their sleeves, and you see a lot in the press room what you probably see, not everything, but you get a nice glimpse of it. And I think Gary Patterson is kind of one of those guys. So real fun to watch. It was 45 minutes, so real long opening press conference. You can tell that he is just passionate about football and just fired up to be back. I think that's, not one of my 5 takeaways, but I think that's a good one to really take away. It's just like, this guy's just, well, it was one of mine. So I'll just jump right into it. And that's it. Football junkie. I mean, this guy, you can tell, lives and breathes football. And not that any of these guys don't. So I'm not saying Danton Lynn didn't live and breathe football. Not saying you have to live and breathe football to be good. But I think the Danton Lynn era, obviously it ended very unceremoniously. I think and I believe he still was a very good coordinator. I think he's a very good coach and is probably going to be continue to be a very good coach and continue to elevate his resume. So this is nothing bashing him, but just a very different style. I mean, he is a more pro style, quieter, kind of, hey, he's got his scheme. Like, we didn't get to see him in practices. Maybe he was more vocal. But from what we could tell and surmise from that era is it was a much more, methodical, not too brash and it, just very different than like a college football coach, if you will. And that's not saying anything bad about Dan Lynn, but I think everyone would take that. I think Gary Patterson is very opposite. I think he's going to be much more in your face with players. I think he's probably going to be much more in your face with media and fans, and not in a negative way necessarily, maybe sometimes a negative way. But he is a college football coach to the bone, right? He's been in 40 years college coaching, from UC Davis to then obviously his historic run at TCU, and just a guy that cares about student athletes, cares about the continued maturation and growth of student athletes, and that's even beyond the time they're at the program. And so just what is going to put, I think, everything into this program and, take everything he can from his experience, his knowledge, and put it into this defense to make it the absolute best that it can be. Again, not saying anything bad, when you think about Danton Lynn, it always felt like borrowed time. And that's not even to say Gary Patterson may only be here for 1, 2, 3 years. But Dan Lynn, it just always felt like, what was going to be next? Was it going to be the NFL? Obviously, I think Penn State was the only college job he would leave to. I've said that many times. Obviously, he did. Outside of that, though, it always felt like he would end up back in the NFL. That was kind of felt like his goal, just his demeanor, his style. And so, don't want to say USC was necessarily a stepping stone, but kind of was. We were on borrowed time with him, and that was from the day he was hired. It felt like we were on borrowed time. I think with Gary Patterson, it feels much more like, yeah, may he end up going somewhere else if he gets offered a head coaching job, at the ripe age of 67, 68, 2-3 years from now? Potentially. But it doesn't feel like he is coming here to get to the next step. It feels like he is just itching to get back in the coaching. He's a football junkie, and this was a great opportunity for him to bit here, which, and, he had a great quote saying, my wife watches Netflix, I watch film. So he was off these 3-4 years. Just because he wasn't on the sideline necessarily doesn't mean he was away fully from the game. I mean, he was watching the changes in college football, the changes in offenses, the changes in play calling, and documenting all of that, and keeping up with all of that, and being a mad scientist in his own laboratory, which maybe was just at his house instead of at the program's office, but building new schemes and different, personnel packages that could counter some of these different offenses that are now being run out that may have been a little different during his time. So just a football junkie. Leads me to my takeaway number 2. USC was the spot for him. He said 2 things. One, he said, which I love the honesty because some people don't admit this, he was away for 3 years because that's the length it takes to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. Like, right? We kind of saw this with Phillip Rivers with the NFL. Like, away from NFL, you got to be retired 5 years, and then you're eligible for the Hall of Fame. Phillip Rivers played for the Colts this year, so his 5-year window resets. Gary Patterson was very honest. Just like, yeah, it takes 3 years to go college football playoff, so I wanted to be away from that so I could get into the college football playoff. Now that that's done, I can get back into the game, get back into coaching. Love that honesty. But then he said, it was going to take the right opportunity for me to come back. I wanted to come back, but I wasn't just going to come back anywhere. Wasn't just going to go take some D2 job or even the wrong, group of 6 or Power 4 job or the wrong defensive coordinator job. It was going to take the right job to get me to come back. And he said many times, USC is a special place. And every coach that's come through these doors comes through John McKay Center, comes through Heritage Hall. Every coach has said that. But here's a coach who's in the College Football Hall of Fame now. Coached decades for a single program and rose them to prominence from the Mountain West to the Big 12. Had a ton of success with lesser tier players. So when he says a program like USC is special and it was enough to get me out of retirement essentially, you take that like for fact, for truth. And he saw USC as an opportunity to come in and bring a program back to where it belongs, which Lincoln Riley has been, attempting to do now going into year 5. And B, saw the opportunity of what USC has in terms of player talent, player acquisition, NIL opportunity, the coaching staff currently here, the facilities coming in and saying like, ooh, this is going to be fun because I got a lot more to play with than I did at TCU. He mentioned this is the biggest front I'm ever going to have when thinking about Floyd Buchard and Jakeem Stewart and Van Sumeren, who they just signed, and some of these other guys on the defensive line. Like, the talent is different than what he worked with. And so USC was that right fit. Takeaway number 3. I'm not saying everyone in the college football world, but there is this narrative nationally and specifically with rival teams. And I'm not talking about fans. Fans can say whatever they want. They're allowed to. That's prerogative. I'm talking about actual media members, reporters, content creators. There is this narrative that coaches, specifically defensive coaches, do not want to coach with Lincoln Riley. That they are afraid coaching with him will stain their resume. I don't think that's true. And that was I'm not going to point them out, but there were actual credible people saying once the Gary Patterson hire started trending the right way and became official, saying, oh man, here's more proof. You're going to settle for a guy that's been out of football and Gary Patterson? No one wants to coach with Lincoln Riley and no defensive coordinator wants to coach with him. No, I think Lincoln Riley just felt like this was the best fit, and Gary Patterson wasn't going to come out of retirement for anyone. He came out of retirement for USC and for Lincoln Riley. He talked about how during their Big 12 days, they would both kind of joke like, man, just think if we could pair these together. Lincoln Riley's offense, Gary Patterson's defense, think if we could have that in one team. Sometimes you have those visions when you meet someone, a colleague or whatever, and you meet and you say, man, just think if it's not the right time right now, but if we could ever do this together, how fun would that be? How special could that be? And, Gary Patterson mentioned, he didn't go into detail, but he mentioned 2 years ago when USC was first looking for a defensive coordinator after moving on from Alex Grinch that Lincoln Riley reached out and contacted him. Now we know obviously it ended up happening with Dan Lynn, and we know now that was probably, he said no because of the Hall of Fame. He's like, I'm going to stay away from the game a little longer, wait this out. But the interest from Lincoln Riley was already there then. And so now with that all, the timing was just perfect. And so it was the right time for this move to happen. But I just think, in my opinion, you can take it as whatever you want, but I think this proves further that there's a huge amount of respect for Lincoln Riley in the coaching world. Now, he has not accomplished what he should be accomplishing at USC. Let's not pretend like that's just he's coaching out of his mind and doing great things at USC. That has not happened yet. But he is not seen as, within the coaching ranks, as some like horrible bottom 50 coach that's just clinging on to a job because of his salary. Like, he is still highly respected. Now, respect only goes so far. You got to now go and make it happen. But I think Gary Patterson proves that. So another takeaway there was that. Hey, what's going on, LAFB family? Before we get to the show, got to tell you about my friends over at Sleeper. The number one sports app right now, and not just for season-long fantasy. They have daily game updates. They have a live chat that you can chat with other users. Plus, my favorite part is the daily fantasy feature, which is similar to a pick'em. You just choose 2 or more players across any sport. Choose more or less in whatever sport that may be. So if it's football, more or less touchdowns. For Jaden Maiyava, if it's Mekhi Lemon, more or less receptions. If you're looking at the Dodgers, more or less home runs for Shohei Ohtani. Really easy, and you can win real money. Right now, when you go and make your first deposit, make sure you use our promo code. You see it right there on the screen, USC LAFB. That's going to give you a matched deposit bonus up to $100. You put in $100 to play with, you're going to get $100 free on top of that. You can put in 10, you get 10 free. Also, right now, our friends are offering a $20 free entry for any new signup. So if you go sign up today, you'll get both those offers. You get $20 right off the bat free to play with. Plus, use that promo code USCLAFB at sign up and you'll get that match bonus as well. Go to the App Store, Google Play, download the Sleeper app today, and tell them that the USC LAFB sent you. Now, let's get on to the show. Fourth takeaway. Talked about his 4-2-5 defense. We've talked a lot about this. Right? The godfather of the 4-2-5 and what that could look like at USC, specifically against Big Ten opponents. And like he mentioned, like you just listen to him talk. And I love it. Like I said, I like Dan Lynn, but Dan Lynn didn't give you anything. When he was talking to the media, he wouldn't even like mention even like defensive calls. And I'm not saying like, hey, give us the actual play call, but he wouldn't even like mention like, oh yeah, the nickel, when you get a cover 3 scheme or this and that. Like, he was so vanilla the way he talked. And obviously he didn't want to give anything away, but he's like, yeah, we're using these guys in different situations, making sure they're up to speed. Like, Gary Patterson in his opening press conference was just like, yeah, when we see quarters match, we got a cover 3 or, I like, different cover 4 base packages and this and that and, moving guys around. Like, you can see his mind just working and him saying like, yeah, like we are going to run the 4-2-5, but we're going to adjust it for not just our team, but for the teams we're playing. And he mentioned how, hey, when I was in the Mountain West, we built defenses and we built schemes in order to beat, what was the teams back then? What do you say? BYU, Utah, I think he said. Whatever, the top 2 teams were in the Mountain West. When we were in the Big 12, we built our defense, built our schemes to try and beat Texas and Oklahoma. Now you're in the Big Ten. Like, you're going to build your schemes to beat Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Michigan. So there's going to be adjustments. And I think that should be refreshing for fans of like a guy that's not just married to a specific set. Like, the base is going to be his general 4-2-5, but it's going to look very different. You're going to add different intricacies. You're going to maybe steal some things from some other defenses, some other great defenses in the league that have had success against certain Big Ten opponents. So the 4-2-5, I think, is going to be very successful with this defense. I said that before. I think it's going to fit like a glove with this personnel. And now we'll just see some little wrinkles here and there that we'll be able to add to it and do some good things. And lastly, and this is probably most important, my takeaway. Lincoln Riley had said, never publicly yet, but we had reported and talked a lot about, hey, during this DC search, it was of utmost importance to keep the defensive staff almost entirely intact. The hope was to keep it entirely intact. That was not some smoke that us in the media were putting out there. Like, that was absolutely what Lincoln Riley, Jen Cohen, Chad Bowden, all the powers that be hoped. They believe in their staff that they built. They believe in continuity and chemistry. And the hope was to keep that intact and the DC to be able to slide in and oversee. Gary Patterson mentioned that. Obviously, we know about Doug Belk, but outside of that, as of now, everyone is still in the building and seemingly happy, hopefully. But he mentioned many times the importance of chemistry, of continuity, of being on the same page. He mentioned the staff multiple times. An elite staff, great guys, great chemistry, the way they treat people and talk to people. He said he was amazed and impressed with how it was here at USC. And he mentioned at the very beginning, I don't know if you guys noticed this, in the first, I think, 5 minutes, Coach Henne by name. When he mentioned the defensive staff, and he mentioned Coach Henne specifically, improving the defense from a year ago. And so learning from the staff already in place, listening to Coach Henne, to Coach Reed, Coach Ryan obviously still in the building as an analyst, Coach Nua, listening from what they did, and then adding and building upon that. And not him coming in and just, he's going to be the CEO of the defense. That was one of the goals of hiring the new DC. It was a true CEO. He's a guy who's been a head coach for 30 plus years. But sometimes being a CEO is listening and taking and molding from what is already in place, from the staff you have, from the leaders you have, and then implementing in the way you see most fit and adjusting and building upon that. So biggest takeaway for me was he sees the value in the guys that are already in the building and how to use their skill sets to what they've already built. And, it's all lip service right now. But he said, hey, these guys did stuff to make this defense better. Whether it's in 1 rep, 2 reps, 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 1 game, 6 games. He saw improvements in this defense from a year ago with the personnel, with the staff in place. Now, how does he listen to who's here, build upon that, and make it next level? Go win 12 games, go undefeated, make the college football playoff. Make sure you outscore your opponent by 1 point. That's what he said, right? Make sure that when you look at goals, he said, well, we'll make goals through the spring, but right now the goal is go undefeated, and that means beating your opponent by more than 1 point. Holding them to 1 point less than you score. Whatever that looks like. So, it was a good press conference. Great to see. What are your takeaways? Did it get you more fired up? Did you care? Is it all lip service? You got to see it. Drop your comments below. Let me know your thoughts. And, let's see how this thing goes. So we got plenty more coming. I'll have some stuff out tomorrow. Going to be a busy weekend. Just to let you guys all know, it is the official wedding weekend this weekend. So it'll be a busy weekend. But I'll try to get some stuff up as we can. Obviously, there's a linebacker commit. Another linebacker visited campus today. We'll have some media availability with Coach Riley and Chad Bowden next week. Junior Day is on Saturday. Some players that we're planning on attending are no longer attending, so we got lots to get into. So I'll be on as much as I can throughout the weekend, so keep it here, right here at the USC LAFB YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Let's keep this rolling as always, family. Appreciate you. Fight on.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.